Hi, everybody. Welcome to Authors on the Air, part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. My name is James Latwell. I'll be your host today, and it's my great privilege to have two outstanding authors with us, Steve Berry and Grant Blackwood, to talk about their latest release, Red Star Falling. It's an adrenaline ride from page one, folks. So you want to make sure you go out and grab this one because it's a blast. For those who haven't been on Earth for very long and don't know who Steve Berry is, he's an international best-selling author. He's got over 20 novels to his credit, translated in 41 languages. I think 26 million copies are out there in circulation. And one of the things that we'll talk about, and we'll talk about today, is there's history at the core of every one of the Steve Berry novels that I've read, and they're always a blast to read. So welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
And with us also we have Grant Blackwood. Grant's also a New York Times bestselling author, and he's written the Briggs Tanner series. He's been a co-author of the Fargo adventure series with Clive Cussler, the Dead or Alive with Tom Clancy, and a new series, Kill Switch, with James Rowland. So welcome, Grant. It's great to have both of you guys here.
Thank you.
So Steve, can we start with you? I mean, Red Star Falling is really an exciting read. Can you tell folks a little bit about the story without giving too much away?
Well, it's the second Luke Daniels adventure, and this is where Luke is having some adventures on his own. He was a secondary character in the Cop Malone series, and we branched him out here. And we had last year's book, The Ninth Man, was his first, and now this is his second. It deals with two things very interesting. One from the Cold War, one from history. The one from history is the Lost Library of Ivan the Terrible, which is a fascinating array of manuscripts that disappeared about 500 years ago. And the second one is something from the Cold War. There's a persistent legend that circulates around in intelligence communities that towards the end of the Soviet Union in the late 1980s into the early 1990s, they launched an atomic weapon into orbit. Nobody knows if that's true. Nobody knows if it's still up there. No one knows whatever happened to it. No one knows if it even happened. But there is a legend of it, and that fascinated me. So now Luke is after it. That weapon is there. But the key to unraveling it, though, is the Lost Library of Ivan the Terrible. So he's got two dilemmas on his hands, and he gets into an adventure that takes him all across Russia. It takes place almost 90% in Russia. The entire novel, you're going to see some places of Russia you've never seen before, areas that I didn't know a whole lot about and learned a lot about. So it's a great, fun action adventure thriller.
Yeah, it is all of that, and the reader is really immersed into these different locations that people like us will never see, and you really get a good feel of being in that place in that time. So I thought it was really, really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, Grant. Now, this story, there's so much about it that parallels what's going on in today's world. I mean, it was like, you guys must have been projecting what was going to be happening over there in that part of the world when you're writing this. How did you develop that storyline?
Well, it all started with Steve's, kernel and idea, this space program, and he had wanted to do Ivan the Terrible for a long time. And so we started throwing these elements together, and at first we couldn't make Ivan quite work. But the essence of it was that Luke had gone on a mission 2 years before this book came with John Vince, a friend of his and a CIA case officer who went into Ukraine. And this story kind of lives in a nebulous time where Ukraine and Russia are sort of at war, sort of not. And yeah. Vince goes in and he disappears. And 2 years later, Luke finds that he's alive. And of course, Luke is the only person that can get him out.
And Grant's being a little modest too. He figured out how to make the library work and tie in to the Cold War. So he's the one that came up with the way to do it.
Well,
yeah, it was very slick. It was very well done.
In British espionage tradecraft, there's something called the bride price. And the bride price is what a spy asks for in return for spying. And so we kind of played that game with the Lost Libraries. There's somebody in the story that has a bride price that Luke has to find it to make it all work.
Yep. Now, Steve, history, as we mentioned, is usually uh, there's a central core in your novels, and in this one, we talked about the Library of Ivan the Terrible. Why that particular piece of history? What drew you to that little nugget?
Well, it's a lost treasure that no one has seen for 500 years. So I can pretty much do whatever I want to with it because, it's no one knows one way or the other. It's reported to have been one of the greatest collections of manuscripts ever. It's always fascinated me, but I never could figure out how in the world, can this matter today? Well, it's got to matter. It's got to be important still now. Well, Grant came up with a way to make it matter today and make it how it made it stick. And I've been wanting to put it in a Cotton Malone novel for years and years. I just never could figure it out. So we got to make it work here with Luke. The difference between the Luke books and the Cotton books are I wanted the Luke books to be a little more action adventure. I want some history in Luke, but I want a lot of action adventure. Where in Cotton, it's a lot of history. There's a lot going on in there.
Right.
So this book, the first book, Ninth Man, kind of was more like a Cotton book. It had a lot more history and a lot more going on. This one is more how I originally thought the books would be, with the action adventure story going on. So it was cool to take this thing from history and tie it in with something from the Cold War and make it fit.
No, I think you nailed it. You did it really well because and maybe that's how we lead into the next question with Grant is, I mean, you've written as a co-author for a number of either legacy projects or big name authors. How does that work successfully? I mean, because you've managed in this one. I mean, the voice is seamless. You can't tell I didn't know, I wouldn't know there were two authors in this book. The voice is, I mean, absolutely pure and seamless. How do you do that?
Well, to tell you the truth, I mean, I think I'm getting closer to Luke's tone and the way he looks at the world. But truth is, when we started, Steve was really clear. He was going to take a draft of the manuscript that I gave him and kind of put his stamp on it and make sure that Luke sounded like Luke is. And that's kind of how it works is once he gets it, he gives us a month or 6 weeks and makes sure this is Luke Daniels all the way.
Yeah, Grant does the initial draft of the novel after we've kind of plotted it out among ourselves, but he's not married to that plot. He can go wherever he wants to go. And when he's finished, he sends me the draft, and I take about 4 to 6 weeks, and I go through and I don't rewrite it, but I do heavily edit it, and I put my voice in because I told Grant early on. I said, "Look, it's going to take you a while to figure out how I write and my voice and how Luke talks. Let's don't waste time on that. Just do it your way, and then I'll fix it." And it worked out fine, and it works out great. So I can actually produce that novel in 4 to 6 weeks as opposed to taking me a year.
Wow, that's a pace.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean then that we're looking at another Luke Daniels novel coming soon?
There'll be a third. There'll be a third, and
Good.
Who knows after that? We have a contract for 3. It's up to Grand Central then at that point, see where we go. But yes, we're working on the third one right now.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about it. I mean, even at Thriller Fest this last weekend, there were copies of The Ninth Man flying off the bookstore shelves there. So people like this character and like the idea behind it. So, and I know they'll love Red Star Falling. It's a fantastic book. So, congratulations, guys. I mean, this is good stuff. So, there's going to be another Luke Daniels novel coming, but are there any other individual projects you guys are working on? Steve, we'll start with you.
Yeah, the new Cotton Malone book will be out February 11th of 2025. It's called The Medici Return. It deals with the Medici family of Florence and deals with something very interesting from Tuscany. Then I'm working on the next Cotton Malone book, which will come in 26, and then there'll be one in 27. So at least I know for the next 3 years, there'll be 3 more Cottons. There'll be 1 more Luke. And then I have an interesting project coming next year, a standalone novel that I wrote years ago. It's not history. It's Steve Berry like you've never read him. It's like a Grisham, Baldacci, or Harlan Coben novel. It's a suspense thriller. And I've been wanting to publish it for a long time. And finally, Grand Central said yes. So it's going to come out next summer. A year from now, it'll be coming out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there a working title of that one yet?
No, it's called The List. And it's kind of autobiographical. I was a lawyer in a small town where there was a paper company, and this is a lawyer in a small town where there's a paper company. And this particular company has a very unique way of controlling its cost. and this lawyer gets caught up in it. And it's, as I said, it's a Grisham, Baldacci, Harlan Coben kind of story. I wrote it in 1992, so I wrote it, 32 years ago. I rewrote it a few years ago and fixed it and got it tighter and cleaner. And I really like it. I've been wanting to publish it, and just thrilled that it's going to make it finally next year.
That's fantastic. That's great news.
Mhm.
Grant, what about you? What else is coming for you?
Right now I'm focused on getting the book to Steve. I'm a little bit behind, so I'm pushing to the deadline. Once I do that, I'm probably going to take a month off, and then I'm going to turn my attention to a series and a character that has been kind of rattling around my head for a long time. And so I'll get back to that, and we'll just, if there's more Luke, Steve and I will talk about it, see what happens.
Yeah, I love it. Now, in the I really appreciated the author's notes in Red Star Falling and the backstory. And Steve, you talked about it, about the Russian satellite that might be up there. That's some scary stuff.
Yeah.
What about that whole world and everything? What drew you to it, and that kind of a scare? What scares you guys? I mean, because that got me. What scares you guys?
Space is fascinating to me. I've always loved it, and so I've very much read about it all my life. So the thing about this story, which will tell the reader, and we're not going to give anything away, is there's a nuke in orbit, but there's a twist. It's not exactly what you think. It's not exactly what you're after. There's a twist to that nuke being in orbit, and that's what makes it even more threatening. Is the twist to the story. There's actually two twists to the story, and we didn't foreshadow these twists. We did not lay the groundwork for them. We didn't lay any participant. They just boom, there they are. So that's what we did. We did it in Ninth Man. We had a twist in Ninth Man at the very end. We didn't lay any foundation for that. We didn't foreshadow it. We didn't lie to the reader, but we certainly didn't telegraph it was coming. We caught everybody off guard. Thankfully, we didn't get any of those emails, or nobody on Amazon reviews said, "I saw that coming a mile away." Because if they did, they're lying, because Grant and I didn't even see it coming till we got there.
And Steve didn't tell me. He said, I've got a twist in the Ninth Man at the end. And I said, do I want to know what it is? And he said, no, but I don't want to tell you. And so when I read it, I didn't see it coming, and I did the draft. So it was well done.
And Elizabeth, my wife, who does the initial read, she never saw it coming either. And this one has two twists like that, that changes it. So you may say, well, there's a nuke in orbit. They're going to blow up America. They're going to do, no, that's not exactly right. No. So
it was really well done. And like you said, it's like when I got to that section of the book, it's like, oh my God. Yeah, I did not see that coming.
It catches you off guard, and we wanted that.
It does.
We wanted to make sure that you get to that point. It's like the movie Argyle. I don't know if you've watched that movie.
Yeah.
You watch about half the movie and you say, this is silly, this is stupid. And then all at once there's this twist. And you go, oh man, I never saw that. Now the movie makes sense. And now it becomes serious. It's not silly anymore. It was very cleverly written. Very cleverly written, the writer who wrote that screenplay, because I never saw it coming. I said, whoa. And then it all changed, and the whole movie became something completely different. This is what happens in this book too.
Now, both of you guys are, I mean, Steve, you've taught masterclass at Thriller Fest and things like that. And Grant, I know you always give back to the community. What advice could you give aspiring authors coming into this world? And they're just now, getting ready to publish their first book. What advice could you give them?
Grant, what you got?
If they're publishing their first book, I would say be very aggressive about advocating for yourself. Really get out there and push the book hard. For beginning writers, I give them advice that they usually find unsatisfying, and that is, you have to persist. This game is about persistence, and if you haven't got that or can't build persistence, you're probably not going to make it.
That's very
exactly
true.
Right. He's exactly right. And I'd add one other thing: keep writing. Don't stop. Keep going. Write the next book. Keep going. Keep going. And it took me 12 years and 85 rejections to get published. So, it was a long process for me. So I am living proof you can do it. It can be done. You just got to hang with it.
No, that's great advice from both of you. I'd like to end with something we call three quick hits, and it's going to be about Luke. Just three quick questions about Luke, about that character. I
Mhm.
really enjoy that character. He's got some depth, and he's got a solid moral compass that keeps us coming
Yeah.
back.
We're testing it as much as we can, but he's got it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Steve, we'll start with you. Regarding Luke, what's his favorite cocktail?
Luke really doesn't drink. He only drinks beer. He has an occasional beer here and there. He's not really a drinker.
All right. And Grant, how about what would Luke go to as his favorite music?
I don't know that Steve has addressed this, but Luke has struck me as a kind of an old Southern blues guy.
Yeah,
That's how I feel about him.
that's exactly what I would have done. Yeah, I've never mentioned music, but that's exactly what I would do if he did it. Yeah.
That
Kind of
fits.
Robert
That fits.
Johnson
Yeah.
and all those forward. So
Very mellow stuff. He's a
Mhm.
mellow guy.
yeah.
I think that fits.
Mhm.
And then finally, Steve, what
I think if you
what do you
open the
think?
dictionary and look up the word unflappable, that's Luke right there.
That's Luke.
Yeah, Steve, what's Luke's greatest fear?
To fail. To fail. He does not want to fail. He doesn't want to disappoint anybody. He doesn't want to disappoint Stephanie Nail. He doesn't want to disappoint Cotton. He doesn't want to disappoint Danny Daniels, his uncle. He doesn't want to disappoint himself. So he doesn't want to fail. That's his greatest fear. He learned that long ago, and that's what kind of drives him along the way. We actually exploit that fear in there because he gets pushed to the limit. He has to make decisions he's never made before. He has to take
Right.
risks he's never taken before. And they all have the risk of failure. But like Cotton tells him, you can't score points unless you're on the field, son. You got to get on the field. Don't
And I would,
Field.
I would say that him losing John Vince and Red Star Falling hit him very hard
Mhm.
because he's a Ranger, and Rangers don't leave people behind. And Luke was forced to do that, and it was the right thing to do. But now that he has a chance to get Vince home again, that's a big deal for him.
I'll fix that failure. And
Yeah.
that's what we played off of that fear. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very, very well done. Folks, we've been talking with Steve Berry and Grant Blackwood on their latest. You're going to be seeing this on the charts, folks. It's a good one. Red Star Falling. Guys, thanks so much for spending some time with us today on Authors on the Air. It's been a blast.
Thank for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
And we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Bye-bye.